Okay, and here's your standard run from Saturday. Look like a good contact. Oh, it was really, it's so hard to film stuff in the barn in standard when the A-frame is like potentially blocking things. So it's hard to see what happened after the dog walk. So sorry about that. It's just hard to see. So you try to blind there. We'll watch again in slow motion. But because of how twitchy she is and how much she just comes with you, yeah, I don't know that I would have tried that there, but oops, okay. So she looks like she's got pretty good contacts, which is awesome because a dog like this needs to stop. Okay, so it looks like she went to the tire, which a lot of dogs did, and I think it's because handlers who are having to stop right here at the end of the dog walk and work that contact a little bit, which you were, you know, and then we take a step forward. You know, it's one of those things that I wouldn't have foreseen when I walked the course at all, but I saw a lot of dogs go to this tire instead, and all I can figure is that visually the tire is more predominant, and because the handler is on the right side of the dog walk, you know, that always sort of naturally will draw the dog in an arc this way. And when you have a really fast dog, like your dog, and you're even with the dog, when you add like any bit of forward motion, like at all, and you start to move forward, the dog will just naturally sort of curl and come this way instead of driving forward. So that's sort of my theory on that, but it's one of those things that when I walked the course, I would have never foreseen that. So if you didn't foresee that, I wouldn't feel bad because I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. Okay, so you get her in the weaves. And you do a cross here. Now, I don't know how good a weaves she has. But to do the cross where you did, after the double, I think there's a jump right here, and we can't really see it super good, but I can see a cone there. So to do the cross right in here, in a timely fashion, you would have had to have left the dog in the weaves a little bit, and you're pretty even with her. I mean, you're ahead of her, but you're not very lateral of her. So by the time she goes into the chute, she's even with you. Now she's actually ahead of you when she comes out of the chute. Now she's taking the double, and you're just starting your rotation. So you get a little bit of a long jump there that you have to sort of manage and get her coming back to you. But quite honestly, I don't know how else you could have handled that section besides with a little bit of a late cross like you did. I mean, I think the way you did it is fine. I'm just yeah, I mean, that's how I did it. And some people crossed between, you know, this jump and the tire, so they sort of sent their dog out to the double, and then they came and they crossed over, you know, between those two. But I think with your dog, I think that would have been impossible, because I think you would have pulled her off the double. So I think your handling choice is correct. It's just my job to point out, like, how good, or, you know, how good of a job you did. So it was a little bit late, but I can see why it was late. But if you trust her more in the weaves, you could have put her in the weaves and sort of, after you got past the tire, sort of gradually pulled away, and it would have gotten you a little bit ahead. But I don't know if that's something you can do with her or not. Get her to the tire. So it looks like she doesn't take the A-frame, and you're pretty far behind. And you're behind because, sorry, sometimes it freezes up like this. Okay, so you're behind because you sort of waited for her here to do this cross, to make sure she wasn't going to go straight and take that jump. So it puts you a little behind. Now she's really ahead of you, and when a dog is ahead of you, especially a fast dog, their tendency is going to be to curl into you. And so you're behind, and it actually looks like you're clapping your hands right here. And probably because of the dog walk was over there. I remember that. Some dogs were thinking they were going to go to the dog walk. And so you're clapping your hands, and you're behind, and you were sort of decelerating, and it was just too much for her, and so she pulled off. And that's one of those things, like, you'll figure that out the more you run this dog, like how much you need to pull her and call her off of stuff and, you know, whatnot. So here you did this blind, and if you're going to take the time, I mean, I don't know what your agenda was. You know, you're really working the contact, meaning you're slowing down. I can tell that you're talking to her and whatnot. So if you're pretty worried that she's not going to do the contact, then I don't know that I would do a blind. But if you're confident she's going to do the contact and you wanted to purposefully work on the blind, then I think this is great. I'm doing some of that with my young dog. Like, I know I've worked it in training, so now it's time to do it in a trial, and sometimes he just doesn't do it very well. And this could be one of those times with her. I don't know. So I'm not saying it's bad that you did the blind at all, because maybe you were working on it, but, and you're pretty much even with her, and you couldn't have done the blind any sooner than you did. So, I mean, all that happens is because you do it, and then I think she releases herself, or maybe you release her, but your motion, I mean, your motion is pretty much to the table, to our point of view, but to your dog who is short, look at, you're taking a step that way, and then your left leg takes a step that way, and then you sort of cross your feet. So what your feet are doing is going to be a big deal to this dog. Your motion is a big deal to this dog, but so are your feet. So when you did this blind, I would have tried to make my feet cross more in a vertical line instead of, you take a step, see that? You take a step to the right, take another step, and you actually cross over. She's totally following that. And she just wants to go, go, go as fast as possible to the next thing that she thinks you're cueing. And she thinks she's really good at anticipating what you're cueing. So it's tricky to run a dog like this because she's a little twitchy that way, which in some respects is awesome because she can turn on a dime. Okay, so that part was pretty good. You got a pretty wide turn on that wrap. And I can see why. So she has an amazingly long stride for a smaller dog. So here she lands, but you need to keep that in mind, okay? So you're moving this way, your shoulders are more or less that way. You do have your outside arm up, which is awesome. And you're starting to rotate, but look, she's taking off right there, and you can see by this cone that that's about where that jump is. We can't really see the jump in this slow motion, but she's taking off really, really early. So it's like she landed from this jump, and she took one stride, and she's taking off again. So she has a really long stride for how small she is. So she needed to know right here that she's doing a wrap, but you're still moving this way. Your shoulders are more or less still facing that way. And to do the wrap, your shoulders need to face that way, right? Because that's the direction she's going to be going, and you sort of need to be stopped. And none of those things were happening, but she also took off so incredibly early. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have predicted that she would have taken off that early. And then I think the end is fine. She does a nice teeter. You work it a little bit, which is nice because you really need that with this dog. It's nice.